The Rambam writes, the Gemara tells us, where a person who returns to Judaism, when he does something, the value of what he does is greater than the person who was a tzaddik, was devoutly righteous all his life. Why? So Rambam writes, Maimonides writes, because a person who's been devout all his life, he doesn't have to deal with all the issues of the past, all his skeletons and all his desires, all his inhibitions of the past, because they don't exist, because he lived a life of purity. But a person initially who was involved in another type of lifestyle, and now he's chosen to live another lifestyle, the life of the Torah, he still has to contend with all the desires and the interests and all the drives of the past. He's always in a suppression state. Being in a suppression state is always a state of L'fum Tzara Agra. Everything he does comes with greater difficulty. As much as he knows it's right, and that's the overriding issue always, but factually it's a continuous struggle to some degree, although when he succeeds, he feels tremendous sense of accomplishment, but factually, when he's in the fray, so to say, he's in the fray, and therefore it's more difficult. So his one action has 100 times greater value than the action of a tzaddik who's been a tzaddik all his life, because it's much more difficult. The Ramak, or Moshe Kurdavira, writes something very interesting. The Gemara tells us that God created this world with the spirituality which lies within the letter Hey of the Hebrew alphabet. Now, the letter Hey, the way it's shaped, on the right side, there's a horizontal line with the right leg connecting to the top. On the left side, the leg doesn't go all the way up to the roof. Now, what is the significance? What does this symbolize? Between the two legs, the right and left leg, it's wide open. And on the left leg, there's a space, a small opening between the left leg and the roof of the letter. What is the significance? So the Gemara answers, the Talmud explains, when God created this world in terms of free choice, if a person chooses to go into free fall, that's your prerogative. A person could choose to anything he wants. That's the nature of free choice. But after you've gone and you've made those choices, and you've chosen to reject everything, to live a life which is contrary to spirituality, and then you come to a realization you want to come back. Could you come back the same exit that you had exited? Could you use that as an entry point? You can't. Why? Because since that road is fraught with all kinds of complications, the social setting is everything which is the antithesis of what you should be. The lifestyle, the whole setting, therefore you have to take a different route back. How do you have to come back? You have to come back through that tiny opening on the left side between the left leg and the roof. What does that mean? He explains it this way. We read in Pirkei Avos that a person has to make fences for himself. Because we're only human and we have natural blind spots, we have to make fences. Now, a person who's been a tzaddik all his life, he needs very small fences. Why? Because basically his cognizance is continuous, but a human is not 100%. We always have some degree of lapses of clarity. So to cover those lapses of clarity, we make fences because we're all human. What about the person who went to the edge and he lives on the edge and every moment he go off the edge? You understand? Because he's at the edge, he has to make much stronger fences. I always give the example. You have one of these little smart cars and you have a guardrail. How strong does that guardrail have to be? That if he should hit that guardrail, that he shouldn't be able to go through the guardrail. Doesn't have to be that strong. But if you have a Mack truck, one of these Mack trucks, dump trucks, loaded with debris, and it hits that guardrail, you understand? The guardrail, it's like snapping a twig. It means nothing. You have to have a very serious level of of railing over there, that it should not go through. And you even have to have multiple railings. So therefore, the truck cannot go near the edge, Because if it goes too close to the edge, it goes over the edge. The person who lived a life which was contrary to spirituality, he can't, because he's at the edge, an ordinary fence doesn't help. He has to have multiple fences to keep him away from that edge. Therefore, his life becomes much more complicated. Because he has so many issues to contend with, therefore, he has to take much more into account, much more into consideration. And therefore, the Midrash tells us that a rabbinic law, a person who keeps a rabbinic law, has greater value in God's eyes than a Torah law. Why? Because a rabbinic law, a Torah law, you'd say, of course, that's the word of God. Who am I to violate that? A rabbinic law is because I'm concerned that I may violate the Torah law. So I take all the issues into consideration and I create multiple fences, not even to get near there. That's even an ordinary Jew. But a person who's about tshuva, where he has to take extra precautions, create extra guidelines, extra safety measures, his life is much more complicated. Because he's fighting with his demons of his past continuously. Therefore, the Fumtzar Agra, his sacrifice throughout his life is greater than a person who was devout all his life. So therefore, he's saying, you find yourself in the situation that you'll be seen as somebody who's not sociable. You're not really a person people would want to be associated with because your behavior is anti-sociable. And people will not want to be associated with you. And you're even seen as a person there may be something wrong with you. But God sees you as the hero. You know something? It's irrelevant what the world thinks, but it's not pleasant. But if a person over time is able to recognize the value of that ultimately everybody has to answer, then that person will succeed. So you have to put that in perspective to understand better you should be seen in the eyes of God as his subject rather than being seen as a person who's unacceptable.